When a badly hurt Bigfoot was brought to my research lab in 1998, I never guessed that helping it would lead me to find the biggest secret in history. What I learned about where these creatures come from changed everything we know about how humans grew and our place in nature. My name is Dr. Victor Hartley. I am a 43-year-old scientist who studies how living things change over time, and this is the story that cost me my job and almost my life, but gave me the truth the world really needs to hear. September 14th, 1998 is a date I will never forget because everything changed that day. I was working late at the Pacific Northwest Research Institute, a private center hidden in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State, about 40 miles from Seattle. Our lab focused on studying rare and endangered animals, especially large ones. And I had spent the last 15 years working there, moving up from a new researcher to the head of the department. The building had the best tools, paid for by the government and private groups who want to save nature. We had everything we needed: machines to read DNA, surgery rooms for big animals, and cages for bears or elk. But, most importantly, we kept secrets well. Because we were far away and very private, we were the best place for special wildlife cases. I was in my office that Monday evening looking at information about grizzly bears when my phone rang. The name on the phone showed it was Dr. Sarah Kim, the head of our center. "Victor, we have a problem," she said right away. Her voice sounded tight, which meant something serious was happening. "I need you in the main surgery room right now. And, Victor, clear your schedule for the next few days. You are not going to believe this." I had worked with Sarah for 12 years. She was smart, calm, and did not usually exaggerate. If she said I wouldn't believe something, I knew I had to pay attention. "I am on my way," I said, grabbing my white lab coat. The walk from my office to the surgery room took about 3 minutes, but it felt longer. The building was quiet at this time. Most of the workers had gone home, leaving just a few people for the night shift. My footsteps echoed in the hall, and I started walking faster because I was so curious. When I walked through the doors of the surgery room, I stopped completely still. The room was ready for a big operation. Machines were beeping, stands were ready, and tools were laid out on clean trays. But it was the table in the middle that made me gasp. On the table lay something that should not exist. It was huge, easily 8 feet tall, and covered in thick, dark brown hair that was dirty and bloody. The arms and legs did not look like any monkey or ape I knew. The arms were too long, and the legs were too thick. The hands were as big as dinner plates, and the face. The face looked familiar, but also very strange. It had a heavy brow, a flat nose, and a jaw that stuck out a little, like a human face looked at through weird glass, or a gorilla's face with human features. Is that? I couldn't finish my question. My science training was fighting with what my eyes were seeing. "A Bigfoot," Sarah said quietly, standing on the other side of the table. Next to her was Dr. Marcus Webb, our head animal doctor, and 2 helpers I knew, Jennifer Ortiz and Kyle Patterson. All of them looked as shocked as I felt. "That's impossible," I said without thinking. "Bigfoot doesn't exist. It is a myth, a story. There is no science to prove it." "There is now," Marcus said, pointing at the table. "Whatever this is, it is real, it is alive, and it is hurt very badly." I moved closer, my brain finally understanding what was happening. Where did it come from? I asked. Highway 2 near Stevens Pass, Sarah explained. A logging truck hit it this morning. The driver said it was a bear, but when the officers arrived, they saw it wasn't a bear. They brought it here because we have the right room and can keep it a secret. I walked around the table looking at the details. The creature was asleep and breathing hard. I could see bad injuries, cuts on its chest, a broken leg, and maybe hurt insides. They had already put needles in its arm to give it medicine and fluids. You have already started treating it, I said. We had to, Marcus said. It was going into shock. We have made it stable. But Victor, we need to know what this is. Is it an animal we know? A strange bear? A gorilla that escaped? We need your help. I put on gloves and started to look closer. My hands were steady even though this was so weird. My 15 years of training took over. The hair was rough, thicker than human hair, but thinner than gorilla fur. The skin underneath was dark, but not as dark as a gorilla's. The muscles were huge. This creature had to be very strong. Can I take samples? I asked Sarah. That is why I called you, she said. We need a full checkup, DNA tests, tissue samples, blood work, everything. I spent the next hour taking samples while Marcus and his team fixed the wounds. I took hair, skin, and blood. The creature stayed asleep the whole time because of the medicine. As I worked, I couldn't stop thinking about what this meant. If this was really a new type of great ape in North America, it would change everything we knew about how primates grew and where animals live. This wasn't just a new animal. This could be the biggest discovery in 100 years. I need to test these samples right away, I said when I was done. We need to know what its genetics are. Agreed, Sarah said. But Victor, this stays a total secret until we know what we have. No papers, no news, no telling anyone. If people find out we have a live Bigfoot, we will be swarmed by reporters and crazy people. I nodded. I understood why we needed to be quiet. Just us for now. I have told the others to promise not to tell. We might need more help later, but for now, I want only our main team. I took my samples to the genetics lab, a room I had been in many times. But tonight felt different. Tonight, I was testing something that could change school books. Getting the DNA out took several hours. I followed the steps I had done hundreds of times, but my hands were shaking a little as I put the samples into the machine. This was it. This would tell us what we were really dealing with. The first results would take until morning, so I went back to the surgery room to check on the patient. Marcus and his team had finished their work. The creature was stable, his wounds were cleaned and bandaged, and his leg was in a cast. He was breathing easier now. The screen showed his heart and breathing were okay. Will he survive? I asked. Marcus nodded. Unless something goes wrong, yes. He is very strong. Injuries that would kill a human or a bear, this thing is handling very well. Whatever it is tough. I pulled a chair up next to the table and looked at the sleeping creature. With his eyes closed and breathing steady, he looked almost peaceful, almost human. Has he woken up at all? I asked. Briefly, when we first brought him in, Jennifer said. She was a young helper, about 26, but very good at her job. He looked right at me and Victor. There was smartness there, not just animal smartness, something more. Did he try to talk? No, just looked at me for a few seconds. Then Marcus gave him medicine for the surgery, but I promise He understood what was happening. He knew we were trying to help. I spent the rest of the night in that room watching the creature and taking notes. At some point, I fell asleep in my chair. I woke up to the sound of alarms. The screens were beeping fast, and the creature's eyes were open. He was staring right at me with a look that made me freeze. His dark eyes were very smart, studying me just like I had been studying him. We looked at each other for what felt like a long time, but it was probably only 30 seconds. Then he made a sound, low and deep, almost like a question. "It is okay," I said softly, using a calm voice. "You are safe. We are helping you. You were hit by a truck, but you are going to be okay." The creature tilted his head, still watching me. Then, amazingly, he lifted his good arm and pointed at the cast on his leg. Then he pointed at me. The message was clear. "Did you do this?" "Yes," I said, my heart beating fast. "We fixed your leg. It was broken. The cast will help it heal." The creature looked at the cast for a moment, then looked back at me, and then he did something that changed everything I believed. He nodded, a clear, purposeful nod. This wasn't just a new type of ape. This was something else entirely. I immediately called for Marcus and Sarah. Within minutes, the three of us stood around the table, watching as the creature followed our movements with those smart eyes. "He has been awake for about 5 minutes," I explained calmly. "He understands us. Watch." I pointed at the cast on his leg, then at myself. "We helped you, fixed your leg." The creature looked at the cast, then at me, and nodded again. Sarah gasped. "That is not possible," she whispered. "That level of understanding, using signs, that is human-level intelligence." "Or close to it," I agreed. "Sarah, we need those DNA results now. Something is strange here." Just then, my pager beeped. It was the genetics lab. The test was done. "Stay with him," I told Marcus. "Keep him calm. I will be back soon." I ran to the genetics lab, feeling excited and nervous. Dr. Lisa Chen was at the computer, looking pale as she stared at the screen. "Lisa, what did you find?" She looked up at me with fear and amazement in her eyes. "Victor, you need to see this. I ran the test 3 times. The results they are impossible." I moved next to her and looked at the screen. What I saw made my legs feel weak. I had to hold the desk to stand up. "This can't be right," I said. "Run it again." "I already did 3 times," Lisa said. "Victor, the results are the same. I don't understand how, but they are correct." The DNA test was clear. The creature's DNA was 98.7% the same as human DNA. That was closer than chimpanzees, which are about 96% the same as humans. But what scared me was the specific parts that were the same. "Look at chromosome 2, Lisa said, pointing at the screen. "It is 2 chromosomes joined together, just like in humans. This is the main thing that makes humans different from apes." "But look at these parts," I said, scrolling through the data. "These genes here are for human brain growth. The FOXP2 gene for speech, the HAR1 gene for the brain. This creature has human genes." "Not just has them," Lisa said. "Look closer. These genes are working, Victor. They are fully active." I spent the next hour looking at the data and comparing it to every other primate we knew. The answer was clear and scary. "This isn't a different species that grew alongside humans," I said slowly, realizing the truth. "Lisa, this is human, or it was. This is a branch of the human family tree." "That is impossible," Lisa said, but she didn't sound sure. There is no proof of any other human types alive today. Neanderthals died out 40,000 years ago. Not all of them, I said, my mind racing. What if some survived? What if they learned to live in deep forests and became bigger and hairier for the cold? Over thousands of years, they would look different. But genetically, I stopped talking and looked at the data. Then I saw something else. Lisa, look at this. These markers show they split recently. This isn't a species that split from humans millions of years ago. This split happened not long ago. How recently? I did the math twice. Between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago, right when modern humans were moving out of Africa. This was huge. Bigfoot wasn't an unknown ape. He was human, a different type of human that had survived hiding in the forests while we took over everywhere else. We need to tell Sarah, Lisa said. Victor, do you understand what this means? This changes everything about human history. I printed the results and went back to the surgery room. Sarah was waiting outside, and I could see Marcus through the window watching the creature. Victor, what did you find? I handed her the paper. You are not going to believe this. Sarah read the data, her eyes getting wider. When she looked up, she was pale. This says it is human, a type of human. Yes, or like a sister to humans, like Neanderthals were, I said. But Sarah, it survived. A whole group has been living with us for thousands of years, and we never knew. That is impossible. We would have found bones or fossils. Would we? I asked. They clearly avoid humans. They live in very far places, and if there are only a few of them, their bones would be very rare. Plus, if they bury their dead, we might never find them. Sarah was quiet, thinking. We need to go in there and try to talk to it. If it is human, truly human, then we have to treat it like one. Not as an animal, but as what? A person. That is exactly what he is, I said. Sarah, we are not dealing with an animal. We are dealing with another type of human being. One that has been hiding from us for a long time. We went into the room together. The creature was still awake, watching us. Marcus moved aside. I am going to try something, I said. I sat down on a chair, so I was at the same level as him, not standing over him. Can you understand me? I asked clearly. The creature watched me, then nodded once. My heart raced. Do you have a language? Can you speak? He opened his mouth and made a sound. It was low and had a rhythm, sounding like words, but his throat was shaped differently. He couldn't make our sounds. Your voice box is different, I said to myself. You probably have your own language, but can't make our sounds. The creature made a frustrated sound, then pointed at his throat and shook his head. Then he pointed at his ears and nodded. Then he pointed at me and moved his mouth like I was talking. You can understand our language, but you can't speak it, I said. You are telling me you know what I am saying, but you can't answer in words. He nodded hard, looking relieved that someone finally understood. Can you communicate in other ways, hand signs? He held up his good hand and made careful movements with his fingers. It was a sign language. Sarah, get me paper and a pen, I said, watching him closely. When she brought them, I put them near him. Can you write? He looked at the pen and his hurt hand, then made a frustrated sound. He wanted to, but he couldn't because of his injuries. Okay, different way, I said. I will ask yes or no questions. Nod for yes. Shake your head for no. Understand? He nodded. Are there more of you? More of your kind? He nodded. Do they live in these forests? Another nod. Have you been watching us humans? A nod, and his eyes looked tired. Are you afraid of us? A long pause. Then slowly he nodded. That simple move hit me hard. This person had lived his whole life afraid of my kind, hiding and avoiding us. And now here he was, hurt and in our hands. We won't hurt you, I said softly. I promise. We want to help. We want to understand. He studied me for a long moment. Then he reached out with his good hand and touched my arm. Just a quick touch to show trust. Victor, Sarah said quietly, we need to decide what to do. We can't keep this secret forever. The wildlife officers know we have something strange. When he is healthy enough, we let him go, I said firmly. Back to his people. But first, I want to learn everything I can. If he lets me. I looked at the creature. Will you stay? Let us learn from you, and we will help you heal. We will keep your secret. He looked at each of us, deciding if he could trust us. Finally, he nodded. Over the next 3 days, we found a way to talk that changed everything I knew about history. Jennifer knew some sign language, so she helped translate. The creature, I refused to call him it anymore, learned our signs very fast. On the 3rd day, I brought a whiteboard. His arm was healing, so he could hold a marker. Can you show us where you come from? I asked. He drew a map of the mountains with rivers and valleys. It was very accurate. He marked where his people lived in the wildest areas. How many of you are there? I asked. He thought, then drew marks, groups of 5 lines. He drew about 37 or 38 marks. That is all? Sarah asked, sounding sad. In the whole area? The creature nodded, looking very sad. He drew stick figures of his people and crossed them out one by one. He was showing us his people were dying out. You are going extinct, I said softly. He nodded again. Then he drew human figures spreading everywhere. He drew barriers like mountains between humans and his people. He pointed at the humans, then at himself, and shook his head in fear. You have been hiding from us, I said. For how long? He drew symbols for the moon and sun over and over, showing thousands of years. Thousands of years, Lisa whispered. The creature nodded. Then he drew humans with spears hunting his people. He drew violence and death. We hunted you, I said, feeling terrible. Early humans hunted you and drove you away. He nodded. He drew his people running into the mountains to hide. Is that why you were so scattered? Marcus asked. Another nod. Then he drew a family, a father, mother, and children. He pointed at himself, then drew 2 small figures. You have children, I said. A family. His eyes looked full of pain. He nodded and pointed at himself trapped here. He asked when he could go home. Soon, I promised, as soon as you are well enough. Over the next few days, I learned amazing things. His people had a name for themselves, meaning the hidden ones. They had language, traditions, and stories. They taught their children to fear humans. They knew all about us, our cities, our wars, our tools. They had watched us for thousands of years. Why didn't you try to talk to us? I asked. He drew pictures of early attempts to be friendly, which ended in humans killing them. He drew a scientist capturing one of his people in the 1960s or 70s. Someone captured one of you, Sarah said, and killed it. He nodded grimly. I am so sorry, I said. My people have done terrible things, but I swear we are not all like that. He studied me, then put his hand over his chest to show he believed me. On the sixth day, I asked why we were different. He drew two groups of early humans. One group, us, lived in open fields and used tools. The other group, his ancestors, lived in forests and grew strong and hairy for the cold. Sometimes the groups met and had children together. "You interbred with us," I said. "That explains the legends of giants." He nodded. Then he drew a timeline with a question mark for the future. He pointed at his few remaining people and then at the many humans. He asked what would happen to them. "I don't know," I said. "Your numbers are too small to survive for long." He nodded sadly. "Maybe we can help," I said. "If we tell the world, we can protect your land." He shook his head violently and drew humans with cameras and cages. He knew if we revealed them, their life would end. "So, we keep your secret," I said. "We protect you by not telling anyone." He nodded. Then he drew a small group of humans who knew the truth. Us. We would be the guardians of the secret. "We can do that," I promised. "But let us help with medicine if you need it." He thought, then drew two hands clasped together, an agreement. On September 25th, 1998, 11 days after he arrived, Marcus said he was healthy enough to go back to the wild. "I want to come with you," I said to him. "I want to meet your family." He looked at me and nodded slowly. He drew a warning that the hike would be hard. "I am ready," I said. Sarah was worried, but agreed if Marcus came with me, and we brought a satellite phone. We left at dawn on September 26th. We drove as far as we could, then hiked. The creature led the way. We walked for 6 hours deep into the wilderness. Finally, we reached a hidden valley. He called out with a loud sound. Figures came out of the forest. 2 children ran to him, yelling "Papa" in their language. It was a beautiful reunion. His mate, a female with reddish fur, checked his wounds. She looked at us carefully, then touched my shoulder to show she accepted us. We stayed in the valley for 3 days. There were 3 families living there. They had simple shelters, stone tools, and knew about medicine plants. They had a language and told stories. I saw rock paintings showing their history. An old man showed us their cemetery. He showed me the grave of his child, who was killed by a hunter. "I am so sorry," I said. He looked at me with sad eyes. That night, around a fire, I realized they were people just like us, with families and love, but they were dying out. 37 individuals, I said to Marcus. They are going extinct. Our friend sat beside us and drew a timeline ending in nothing. He knew they were disappearing. Then he pointed at us and drew symbols, meaning remember. "You want us to remember you?" I asked. "To tell your story when you're gone?" He nodded hard. He wanted us to bear witness. "I promise," I said. "I will keep your story safe." That night, I listened to the sounds of the valley, knowing I was watching a group of humans slowly fade away because of us. On the 4th morning, I found the father by the stream. He signed that time was short. He pointed to the mountains where other small groups lived, but they were too far away. We returned to camp. Marcus made coffee. "I think the best we can do is keep their secret," he said. I agreed. Revealing them would destroy them. At midday, the father took me to a hidden cave. Inside were paintings of early humans and his people meeting, fighting, and then his people hiding. It showed them fading away. He pointed to a drawing of a human with a heart. Me. "A keeper," I whispered. He nodded. Then an older male gave me a bundle. Inside was a stone tablet with writing on it. They had a written language once. "We give this to you," the father signed. "If we keep it, it will be lost." I felt the heavy responsibility. "I will protect it," I said. That evening, the father told a story to the families. Then he signed to me. "Tomorrow." I nodded. Later, I held the tablet in my tent, amazed. This was the most important thing in history, and I had to hide it. We left at dawn. The father put his hand on my shoulder and signed, "Remember." We hiked back to the van. The modern world felt loud and strange after the valley. "What do we tell them?" Marcus asked. "We say it was a rare animal," I said. "Nothing to study." Back at the lab, we told Sarah and Lisa the truth, but swore to keep it secret. We locked the records. For a few weeks, everything was normal. Then, in October, a wildlife officer called about strange sightings near the valley. Marcus, Sarah, and I went to check. We found truck tracks and boot prints. Someone had been there. I felt helpless. We had promised to protect them, but we couldn't do anything without exposing them. Months passed. Winter came and went. In the spring, I went back to the valley alone. It was empty. No shelters, no people. They were gone. I don't know if they moved or were chased away. In the cave, there was a new painting, a human holding a stone tablet with a tear in his eye. They had left me a goodbye message. I stood there and cried for the friend I made and the people who were disappearing. I returned to civilization and hid the tablet and my notes in a safe place. If something happens to me, the record will survive, but the truth will stay silent until the world is ready. So now I tell the story carefully, keeping my promise to remember, honor, and protect. Because some truths are too important to reveal and too sacred to forget.